What's going on, everybody? KGC here with the Spokane Man podcast. Today we have my good friend and one of the greatest of all time, one of the greatest video directors of all time, my buddy, Mr. Jeff Panzer. Jeff, how you doing, sir?
How are you, Caden, today?
Jeff, I'm honored and humbled to be talking to you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and to be talking to you, I guess, in Spokane and anywhere in between. So welcome to Los Angeles from Spokane, and to all your followers and friends and everybody else, Caden, I welcome them.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And Jeff, he's been a very busy man. Jeff, he during the pandemic took on 34 music videos for William Lee Golden and the Goldens. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that came to be about, and how long have you and Golden been friends?
Well, William and I have been friends for about 43 years now. And all I can say about our friendship is he is, without doubt, the closest friend I have ever had. He's just a magnificent human being. Forget about him being a singer or anything of that nature. We just sat down when we first met and had a half-hour conversation. And it was a broship that started then and has lasted to this day. And how I got involved in the William Lee Golden and the Goldens project was, it was back in March of a little bit over 2 years ago when the pandemic actually started. And I knew William had this ambition to go and record an album, a CD, with his sons, Rusty and Chris, because basically he was getting too depressed, sitting at home, watching the news, being locked in. And he just figured there'd be a better way for him to express himself of how he felt and what he wanted to do. So he hired a bunch of musicians. And the night before he was going into the studio, I get a phone call and I could see on my dialer, it's William Lee Golden. And I said, "Hey, William, what's up?" He says, "Jeffrey, this is William Lee Golden." I said, "I know that, William. Your name came up on the phone." He said, "Well, anyway, I sort of hired these crews to videotape me and Rusty and Chris and the musicians being in the studio. And to tell you the truth, I really don't know what to tell them. And I figured maybe you could get on a plane right now and fly to Nashville and help me out. And I will do anything and everything for this man. However, I was not willing to get on a plane because nobody knew back 2 years ago in March what this whole COVID thing was even about, let alone how you got COVID and how it was spread, everything else. So I told him, I don't think I'm going to get on a plane. However, if you could just give me your telephone number of your crew members, and let me see what I could figure out with them. So to make a long story short, I spoke to this spectacular director of photography, Adam Wagner, who, after trying to figure out different ways of doing it, I just said to him flat out, "Do you have an iPhone?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Well, why don't you take your iPhone, mount it on top of your camera, fix the framing on the iPhone to what you're seeing through your lens to give me an idea of what you're shooting." and we'll proceed that way. And we tried it, and let's just say I'm glad we had a dress rehearsal for the gospel session, because, you know, the first time working with crew members that you've never worked with before and not physically being there, but having to talk with them and tell them to get certain shots in different positions and this, that, and the other. This guy, Adam, probably hung up the phone with me after the first day and said, "This guy is crazy. Man, he wanted me to go into the booth when William was singing and this and that, because that's the only way you could get great shots." And he was very apprehensive, to say the least, of disturbing the recording process. But, you know, I just said, "Adam, go in there now." He said, "I can't, Jeff, they're recording." And I said, "I don't care, go in there." And he just did not want to go in. And instead of having a fight with him on our first day, we just shot through the window. And then after the day was over, I said to him, "Adam, if you want to put together something great, then you need to not shoot through a window, because anybody could shoot through a window. You got to be in the room on top of this man's face as he's singing these songs." So after we finished the gospel record, William decided, well, I'm not done yet. I'd like to do another CD with Rusty and Chris of traditional country music, which became our second CD. And again, with Adam at the helm down in Nashville, we were much more successful because he got to know me. I got to know him in the time that we spoke together, and we got terrific material during that whole session. And then William again said he wasn't finished. There was still more music that he had inside of him and felt compelled that he needed to record. And that became the third trio of CDs called Southern Accent, which is a combination of pop and rock type of songs that had music by Tom Petty, Bob Seger, Greg Allman, Chris Christopherson, and a whole bunch of great people, the Eagles. And at that point, Rusty and Chris got more hands-on, because that's their comfort level with those songs, because those were the songs we grew up with, where the songs on the first two CDs were primarily, especially the first one, were songs that William grew up as a young boy living in Bruton, Alabama, on a cotton field that his dad used to run. And those were songs that were indelible in his mind of growing up. And that's why he felt the need to record them now, because I guess when you look back at your youth during dark and miserable times, you go back to comfort songs, I call them. And those were the songs, the gospel songs, that William chose to do the first record with, and in fact, the second record as well. So we got a lot of material out of that. And we ended up shooting a lot of videos thereafter. And there were times that we would shoot 5 videos in one day. And that's like an unheard of thing, Caden. In the world of music videos, I came from the time where an artist would be given a whole ton of money to go out and shoot one video in 2 days. So to shoot 5 videos in one day we were just cranking it out. And I felt really, really horrible because some of them were shot in the peak of summer in Nashville. And if anybody knows anything about Nashville, it could be real hot, humid, uncomfortable. And let's just say Rusty and Chris were not always too happy with their friend Jeff, because basically by the end of the day, they were about to pass out. It was that difficult for them. It was basic training in music video land for those two.
So I had a quick question about how the song Jambalaya came to be about. So you released two videos on the song Jambalaya. One where it was just William Lee and the Goldens on the front porch, and obviously, and then you added somebody to that second music video. What was that? What was that day about? What was that? How did that come to be about?
Well, a couple of years back, I would say maybe 15 years ago, I did a video with Tim McGraw and Nelly. And I think that was one of the first times anybody took two different genres like country and combined rap in it. And I got to give props out to my friend Kevin Law, who was the brainchild behind that whole making of that record and making of Nelly's career, who basically said, I want a video that just shows how close these two guys' lives are, even though they're come from separate places in this universe. So that gave me the clue to do a day in a life, let's say, of each of those artists. We started with Nelly in St. Louis, then made our way down to Nashville and did the same exact camera shots with Tim McGraw, and that was directed by a gentleman, Eric White, who I've had a lot of success with in the past. Great director, and still doing it and still knocking them out. But it was a classic video for its time. And I just said, William and I talk like we're 15-year-olds 3-4 times a day about the music and everything else. And I said, what's your thought of finding a rapper to maybe put in the middle of Jambalaya? And we haven't released that video yet, but he said, yeah, I'm into that idea. Let's try it. So I called up a girl that used to work with me at Universal Records, and her husband, by the name of Bishop Lamont, decided he wanted to be involved in this project. Well, I gave Bishop the song, and Bishop started rhyming about the streets and this and that, and, the police and guns and, just, I said, no, that's not it. So I basically sat down, and I'd worked with this rapper called Lil Wayne, who would basically just sit there and write out raps continuously while you're having a conversation with them. So I took a page out of the Dwayne Carter, AKA Lil Wayne handbook, and I decided I'd write it myself. And I sent it back to Bishop, and he Bishopized my version to make it his version. And we had the rap, and he laid it down, and man, it blew William's mind away. It was spectacular, and I'm real excited for that piece of material to come out to show really the range that and the vision that William Lee Golden has because doing that, a lot of people would be a bit apprehensive. But over the past couple of years, Nelly has been involved with the Florida-Georgia line with a lot of success with that. So he just decided, well, let's try it and see how it works. And it worked out so well that I'm really looking forward to releasing that song and the video, because it just takes the song to some other level. And it's really good-natured fun. The rap is totally about who William Lee is, who Rusty Golden is, and who Chris Golden is. And that's really how I wanted this to be presented. So it wouldn't alienate his core audience, but hopefully I looked at it in terms of broadening the spectrum of his audience to include everyone and everything out there. And I think we're going to do that. You know, it's just a question of when we decide to release it, because as you said earlier, we have so much music to release. It's like a question of when and everything else, but everything is locked and loaded for that. The video's been done and it really worked out great. It really worked out great. I'm probably the only person that works with a band that has not even laid eyes on them physically in the past 2 years and 2 months. We've done it as we're doing this right now through modern technology. And you'd be amazed with what you can see. And to me, it was really helpful because I was sort of like a fly on the wall. I was able to watch the monitors and everything else. And we shot Bishop out here, in fact, at my neighbor's house across the street. And within 20 minutes, Bishop's whole performance, tight, medium, and wide shots were in the can. And it just worked out spectacular. You know, you sometimes have to roll the dice and say to yourself, what do we have to lose? Let's give it a try.
So William Lee told a story about how you were wearing an earpiece. Is that what the FaceTime thing was? Is that he was talking about? Is how you would wear an earpiece, or the director in the studio would wear an earpiece and would tell you, and you were watching on your big monitor at home or your office?
Yeah, and sometimes I would have 2 or 3 monitors going at the same time, depending on how much cameramen, how many cameras we had and all. And it was like I was at NASA and mission control, and I was able to talk to each camera person individually or all together with different iPads set up around me. I looked like a mad scientist. But yeah, that's how it happened. Can we pause for 1 second?
Yep. Okay. Welcome back. Sorry, Jeff took a phone call. Anyway, but so your recording process has it changed ever since you got into the well, not recording, but the directing? Has that changed since you first started, or what do you think works for you now that didn't maybe work back then, and what worked for you back then that might not have worked for you now?
Well, what was great when I got started in the business of making videos for people like Pat Benatar, Billy Idol, Slaughter, you know, all these groups from the 80s, was you had a tremendous amount of money and you had a tremendous amount of time. Money brings you as much time as you really need. And as time went by, the money became a ridiculous figure. Like for a brand new artist, you would be given $150 to maybe $200,000 back in the 80s. And over the course of doing that, and I would say over the past maybe decade, the record labels have tightened their belts as far as how much money they want to give. So as I said, a new artist back then would get, let's say, approximately $150,000 for a video. Now the going rate seems to be between maybe $15,000 and $20,000 to knock out a video. So the economics have certainly changed, but the principles have not changed. And that is, you still need a great video with a great beginning, middle, and end. You get those three elements, you're going to have a great video, no matter who you're shooting. And it works that way in movies and commercials and everything else visual, that if you have a great beginning, a great middle, and an end, great ending, you could put almost anything together. And that's been my philosophy ever since I started making videos. But with William Lee and the Goldens, and that includes Chris's daughters, Elizabeth and Chai, and Elijah, Chris's son, and Craig Golden, William's middle son. And he also has a younger son named Solomon, who did not take part of this process. However, Solomon is my godson, so I have to throw him in there. It was a family group effort, you know. We just didn't stop. We were like a machine, and we'd start early in the morning and work all the way till the sun came down. And we got a lot of videos from that. We got a lot of videos.
I think that's why you were able to make 5 in one day, is because you would start at, early in the morning, you'd go to like what, dinner time?
Yeah, and I would quickly say to them, all right, guys, we're finished with this. Let's turn the camera around, go put on some fresh clothes, and let's just do Elvira, or let's do any of the songs that, were on the top of in my head. Four Walls, or Save Me the Pillow, or anything like that, because William and I would talk the night before. And there was never, ever a written concept for any of these videos. They were more William and I talking about how they would look and where we could get what kind of shots for each individual song. So at least he had in his head what was going on in my head. He'd sign off on it, and we go out and do it the next day.
So what was it like, even though you were not with William Lee when you were filming in the Goldens, when you were filming the music videos, what was it like talking every day to him? What did it grow your friendship, and did it grow your music, the way you guys work together? Because
we always worked great. Ever since we became friends, we would do projects. I did this documentary on him called My Life's Work. When he was in his painting phase, we did a pilot that never got picked up, but a short pilot called Celebrity Expressions, which I interviewed William and interviewed Paul Stanley of Kiss, who's also an artist and loves to paint and everything else. So we've always had a great working relationship. And behind that working relationship is a solid bond friendship that nobody or nothing could ever break. So it's a matter of trust. I trust him, he trusts me, and we trust each other in what we're doing, because the worst thing you could do to an artist is surprise them in a bad way, because then the trust gets thrown out the window. And William and I are like a hand and a glove regarding how we work together and what our friendship is all about.
And I know he's probably never going to see this, but I'm just going to say this. Hi, William Lee. I love you, buddy. And I love your work ethic, and you really put me to shame in 2020. I think you put all of us to shame with your work ethic. Now, Jeff, I want to talk. I want to do a quick rapid fire, if that's fine with you, on
Yeah.
on a couple on what your take about social media is. Also, by the way, please go follow Jeff Panzer on Twitter. It is the greatest. He interacts with you. He makes sure that you're heard, and he also promotes his. He also has his dogs out there for advertisement for William Lee. How did that come about?
Well, it's really strange how it came about, because I never thought I never was on social media before about 2 months ago. And we just saw that our social media had basically plateaued at a given point. And I looked at it and I just realized that we needed a lot more engagement with the people that were following us. And to me, that's what social media should be about. So I first signed on to Twitter and just started generically posting information, pictures, things of that nature. And then I started to get a following organically of a group of really fine people that follow me religiously. And I've now started to take over Instagram and get my feet wet in that. But I'm going to have Rusty Golden pick the ball up for FaceTime, because FaceTime is a whole different world than the other two platforms. And I like the platforms on Twitter's because it's very fast, it's rapid fire. And for something I didn't know anything about 2 months ago, I think I was a quick learner to the school of social media.
And you are a great, seriously, I love at 100% love following you, and I love the interaction you do with not only the people that follow William Lee and the Goldens, but I love the way that you treat people. And you told me something, and I'm gonna wrap this podcast up. And I want everybody to hear this. I called Jeff on Sunday just to kind of run down of how the podcast would go, and he said he would do it. I think he said it against his own will. But Jeff told me the most meaningful thing. He said, "Don't look back." And I had told him my story, and I had told him that about my grandmother, and I've felt it like it was my fault. And Jeff said, "Hey, don't look back." And since that phone call changed my life. I don't look back on any of my mistakes anymore, because quite frankly, those mistakes make me who I am. So thank you, Jeff, for that phone call. And thank you so much for saying that. And I just had to tell the podcast that.
Well, I have watched you follow me, Caden, over the last 2 months, and I could tell you're an avid lover of William Lee, Chris, Rusty, and all the Goldens. And I would always see you taking my information and retweeting it to your friends and your following and all. And I just figured, this is the least I can do to help a friend or a social network friend out. And now that we've spoken personally, and you told me about your story of growing up, and there were difficult times involved with that. And I just said to you, Caden, unfortunately, you can't put the tape in rewind and start shooting it all over again, because we're here and now, and we got to live every moment that we're here, because sometimes life is short. So with that being said, I think you're someone that a lot of people can look up to, that you've overcame a lot of obstacles in your life, and a lot of people that didn't believe in you or really want to give you any recognition whatsoever. And I feel everybody has a voice and everybody should be heard.
That's right.
And that's how I felt. And that's what our conversation was about over the weekend. And I feel that way, that everybody following us, I usually write them DMs occasionally to thank them for their energy, loyalty, and support on behalf of William Lee, Rusty, Chris, and all the Goldens, because a strong fan base is something you can't buy. It's something that happens organically with great music. And fortunately for us, William Lee and the Goldens have provided that for all of us to listen to.
And Jeff, I want to say thank you so much for coming on here. Thank you so much for doing this. And I hope my questions were deep and good enough.
They were okay, and you did an excellent job.
Were you hesitant going on this 18-year-old podcast? These are going to be the stupidest questions ever. And
I didn't know what to expect, but after our conversation that we had on the phone, I hung up the phone and I said, that's a real together guy. He may not think so, but I thought so, that if you're 18 now, you're going to grow so much in the next couple of years that at least you're doing something that you're passionate about. You love music. You love the people involved in music. And if I can even say this, besides helping out William Lee and the Goldens, you're also helping out Chris Golden and his tours to the Northwest. Right. So you basically are part of the Golden family for what you're doing for us. So we appreciate you, Caden.
Well, Jeff, I love you, and seriously, if you ever need anything, you got my phone number, so give me a holler, sir. And thank you again for coming on the show. And this I'll Twitter DM you when this comes out. It'll be out today.
Fantastic, and I wish you all the luck and best in the world, and thank you for being one of our top 10 followers on the Jeff Panzer 2 Twitter page, because you're there from the first moment I wake up, and I wake up at the crack of dawn because it's 2 hours. We're 2 hours different from Nashville, and I have to place my time what William, Rusty, Chris, and the whole Golden family are doing. So I have to live on Nashville time, even though I'm in Los Angeles.
And when I come out there to LA, or when I come out there to California next, I'll call you and say, hey, we need to see each other.
We definitely should.
Thank you guys so much for watching the Spokane Man podcast, for faith, unity, and music bring all together. Love you guys. Love one another.